Hey everybody, I hope you can see me. It's Kelly from joyfullyparenting.com, and I'm really excited to talk about the SAFER model. And what this looks like and what this can help with is if you have got a stubborn child who's pushing all your buttons, if you lose it sometimes, if you scream sometimes, or if you just are screaming on the inside, this is something I want you to have and I want you to start thinking about. By using this SAFER model, you can also help angry children to become more self-regulated. When we are triggered, when our kids are pushing all the buttons we have, even some of those that we maybe didn't even know we ever had, when that happens and we start to raise our voice, we start to feel frustrated, we start to feel angry, we might say things we regret. We might say things and feel guilty. We might then start yelling and realize we're making it that much worse. When that happens, we aren't feeling safe. And when we are triggered, that is a time when we're on our fight flight response. And the number one thing is we need to bring down the anxiety, bring down the stress so that we aren't reacting from a place of anger. We are responding from a place of calm and centeredness and being regulated. Talking about today, hopefully you can see the screen here, comes from my peaceful parenting path model. And this is nine steps. And in those 9 steps, what we're talking about today is really parent yourself. This is how much work have you done? Are you doing to make sure that you stay centered, that you stay anchored, that you stay calm? So SAFER, what it does is this helps you to not yell at your angry child, especially when they are yelling at you. So that is why the very, very first thing is to ask yourself, where's the location of the disturbance in my body? Where do I feel it? So typically for me, I will feel it in my chest and my abdomen. And I feel fluttery, I start to feel heavy, but sometimes for people it's in their throat. Sometimes it's a headache that comes on. Sometimes it's a backache that comes on. The important thing is you know what it is for you. And the reason this is so important is because we mamas and dads can easily flip into a crazy making fictional story about our kids. So say you are somewhere public in a restaurant, say, and your kid is really talking loud. Let's say they're taking the utensils and banging them on the table. Maybe they're pouring out all the sugar and you're really embarrassed. So instead of coming from a calm place, you're like, oh my gosh, it can be like those people over there are watching me. Oh, I'm so glad my mother-in-law isn't here yet because she'd be yelling at me. This kid, I'm never going to be able to bring this kid out in a restaurant ever. They're never going to listen to anyone. They're never going to be able to hold down a job. And if they don't hold down a job, they might end up in the streets and they're going to be a drug addict and they're going to die at 23. That's where really, when left unchecked and when we're not centered and when we're not present, that's where it can go. But I've always told my clients, I can give you the best parenting tips, but if you are flipping out, if you are triggered, even if you try to use them, they're going to fail you, and you deserve better. And this is where we need to start. So that's sensation. The second one is assess. So assess, give the body charge that you have a number between 1 to 10. So, I might check in and I'm like, oh my gosh, I walked into my child's room and it's a total pig pen. I was just in there an hour ago and it was totally clean and we have guests coming. I like my place a bit cleaner, especially more than my son. So I might check in and say, okay, I feel heaviness in my chest. I feel fluttery in my abdomen. Where am I on a scale to 10? 10 being the very worst. I'm a 6. I'm a 6. So just doing that again connects you with the here and now and takes you away from the crazy making story. The next one is feeling. Is what feeling word best describes what's going on? So if I come in, I might to the room and it's like, I've already told him that we're having guests, we need to keep it clean, and it's whirlwind has gone through. I might be at say a 5. And I might be feeling anxiety. anxious that I'm not going to have it all together before my guests come, and worry. If you have a child who's totally melting down, who's having a tantrum in the middle of the aisle of your grocery store, it might be a 7 or an 8, and you might be really angry. But just knowing that that's what's going on, that's what's happening right now in your body, allows you to change it. It's when we aren't aware of what's going on, we do nutty things that usually fuel the strong-willed child or stubborn child fire. Next, the E, the experience. This is when you can calm yourself down. Like, what's the experience? Ask yourself, so what's the real trigger? Like, what's really going on? So for me, it might be, what's really going on is I feel like my mother-in-law is coming over right now and I'm really embarrassed and I feel she's going to judge me. And I'm worried that she won't love me as much. She won't think highly of me. And really, I'm embarrassed and ashamed. That might be my real trigger. Oops, sorry. Got a dog down here and I just stepped on a toe. I mean, on a tail, sorry. So for you, if your child is melting down and you might be angry that they're just not listening to you and you haven't been able to get them to listen to you. And this is where you can also ask yourself, what's the fear? What's the real story that is going on? Next one and last one is the relief resource. Finding what are the resources you have that are going to give some sort of relief. So what self-regulation practice do you most need? And this is where everything we're working on right now needs to be grounded in practice, because in the moment, you're not going to be very good at it. And the cool thing is, what I love seeing with parents who have the courage to use these tools, to be more self-aware, to try something new, is that you're also modeling for your child and children that they can do the same. Some of you might have used the very famous timeouts. And coming back to that first module on Parent Yourself, I always look at how can you take a parent timeout? So, and that might be the very first thing you need to do. So questions, I would be curious. What are the self-regulation practices you use that really work for you? Do you need more? Everybody talks about the breath work, and I remember thinking to myself, I don't know, it seems so overdone. But generally speaking, that is the number one resource that we need to connect with. And so one of the ones I really like is that just practicing in silence. It can be while I'm making dinner. It can be while we're driving in the car. Then when I'm breathing in, I'm thinking, you love me. And when I breathe out, I love you. And the reason I do this is because it helps me in the moment when I am not feeling so loving to go back, that when I'm breathing in, you love me, I love you, even if I don't feel it in the moment. It's just one of those things that starts to shift the tides. If you would like a copy of this, please let me know, send me a direct message, and I might even put it in the comment section below. And if you haven't yet joined the Stubborn Child Solutions Facebook group, I would love to see and get to know you in there and also answer your questions. Starting in the fall, on Wednesdays when I go live, I am wanting to coach someone for free, where we can go a bit deeper and customize some of these parenting tips so that you feel more confident in how do you use it. Because you might have heard me say something today and you're like, yeah, Kelly, that's great. But what if my child is doing this? What if they are licking all the utensils as we walk through a restaurant, which I did have one client do. Her son was doing that. So I'd love to hear from you. And most of all, I'd like to remind and thank you that if you haven't been told lately and had some sort of appreciation from your family, thank you for all the seen and unseen things you do day in, day out.